on column D is it becomes an alias of that column. Are we doing okay so far? A parameter passed by reference is a way to find the original object. Okay. What about Y? If you look at the code here, I use also wife's account to specify parameter Y. So what do we put here? Exactly the same thing. It is also known as, or an alias of column D. Are we doing okay so far? What about N? N is passed by value, and I use a constant 200 here. So what should I put here?
200.
Just good old 200. Okay, very good. Now, once we set up the parameters correctly, the rest really just kind of follows. We go into transfer. The first line that does anything useful is line 5. What is it doing? It's computing the difference between x and m. What is x? X is an alias of column D. What is column D? Column D has a value of 200. Okay? What am I doing with 200? We are going to subtract 200 from it because n is also 200. 200 minus 200 gets me 0. What do I do with 0? I put it back into parameter x. I look up parameter x. It is an alias. It is also known as column D. So column D is now updated to 0. So there is a slice of time when my wife's account ends up with a balance of 0. But then what do? I move on to line 6. What does line 6 do? Line 6 is also an assignment statement. The right-hand side of the assignment statement is y plus n. What is y? Y is an alias of column D. What is column D? Column D is 0 at this point. What is n? N is n is a passed by value parameter. It has a value of 200 at this point. 0 plus 200 is 200. The entire right-hand side of line 6 is 200. What do I do with that 200? I put it back into y. I put it back into y, and y is an alias of column D. And column D currently has a value of 0. I'm going to overwrite it with 200. In other words, there is one particular slice of time when that account has a balance of 0. But then I put it back to 200 immediately. Then we move on to line 7. Line 7 is the last line of this subroutine, which means we have to look up the return line number. The return line number says we have to go to line 16, and once we utilize the information of the return line number, then we have to say these columns are no longer in use, and then we shred all of these, and then continue execution on line 16. Line 16 by itself is also the end of a subroutine, which also means that I have to look up the return line number of that one, which is column B. That tells me we have to go back to post. And after I utilize that column, then I have to deallocate that column and also the other columns related to this invocation. And that's the end of the execution. Do we have any questions about this trace? Yep.
It wouldn't matter in which order you did the parameters, except only in the sub-expert, it just matters the order that the parameter 5 and 6 executed. But the way you send it, the way you sent the x and y to the function, it wouldn't matter in which order they were sent.
In pseudocode, it does not. Okay, if I understand your question has to do with how do we specify. Does the order of the specification of the parameter matter? Is that kind of your question? The answer is not when we're dealing with pseudocode like this, because I spell out, this goes to the parameter x, this goes to parameter y, that goes to parameter n. In other words, if you switch the order around, as long as you tell me which one goes to which parameter, I can still continue the execution. But when you do it in C and C++ or just about any programming language, practical programming language, you don't specify this goes to n, you don't specify this goes to y, you don't specify this goes to x. It is all implicit by the position of the parameter. So in that case, it does matter, because if you switch these two, then it will be using the wrong thing to pass to the parameters. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. In this class, we spell out the name of the parameter that is receiving that information from the invocation, but in the actual C and C++ programs, you do not. It is all implicit by position.
So when we do it in pseudocode, do we have to say that this is passed to X and this is passed to Y?
Yes.
Or there'll be no other way to know which are passed?
In this class, we do it this way just to reinforce the concept of, okay, we know we are passing wife's account to parameter X, but not only that, we know it's being passed by reference. Okay? Because in C and C++, you don't know whether it's passed by reference or not if you just look at the invocation statement itself. But in this class, we want to make it very explicit so that we are aware of the mechanism of passing parameters. Good question. Any other questions about passing by reference at this point? No questions?
Well, I was kind of confused because, but can you move your, okay, add line 5.
Row 5 or line 5? Row 5
The one
is
you
here.
got highlighted over there.
You mean this one?
Yeah,
Okay, this is the execution of line 5.
right.
Mhm.
Puts column D at 0. And column D is,
This is my
the
wife's account.
information is held in 3 places.
No, not really. Okay, column D is known as wife's account when
Right.
I am in main.
Right.
Okay, that's the name of this column when I'm in main. But it is also known as parameter X when I'm in the subroutine transfer, as well as parameter Y when I'm in the subroutine transfer. During the invocation of transfer, it has 2 names in transfer. Basically, at one point of time, at this particular slice of time, when we are on row 9 of the trace, the same column D basically has 3 different names all at the same time. It is known as wife's account in main. It is also known as parameter X as well as parameter Y in the subroutine transfer. But they are all referring to the same column, which is column D.
And that's where the actual value is held,
Yes,
and not in the variables.
not in the parameters.
Right.
X and Y are just parameters to that variable. Yep.
Okay.
Would it be wrong on, like, say, line number 5, if you said AKA column D and you just wrote down 0 and then line on there, and you also wrote down 0 and the Y's, and then on line 6, where it said AKA column D again, would it be wrong to write down 200 at that line and 200 also in the Y's?
You mean 200 here?
Yeah.
You cannot do that because you are not overriding the reference to the variable. Okay, remember, a pass by reference parameter is a little slip of paper with the call number of a book on it. Okay, remember that analogy?
Yeah.
So when you overwrite, when the instruction says overwrite the 16th page of the book with something else, you're not overwriting the little slip of paper with the call number. You're using the call number to find a book, and then you change the content of the book. So that's why we are not changing X itself, because X refers to the little slip of paper with the call number of the book. Okay? Are we?
Yeah, it's not
okay?
it's not the variable, it's just the call number of the variable.
Exactly. It enables you to find the thing that you want to change.
Okay.
So you don't change. Okay, let's say, there are other analogies as well. Okay, let's say you're a contractor, okay, and your job is to install additional electrical wiring in a house, and you're given an address. Okay, the address is your pass by reference parameter. it let you go find the house that you're supposed to work on, right? So when you install the electrical wiring, are you installing the electrical wiring on the little slip of paper with the address, or the house that the address is pointing to?
No.
Exactly. So use that analogy, because that's why we don't change X or Y, because X and Y are basically the address to the object that we want to change, and you don't change the address, you change the object directly. Okay, that's a good question. I know at this point this can be very confusing, but and I know this looks kind of really picky. How come we're changing the column here and not changing this one? Why not also change it here? But I want to make sure that we follow all these rules, because this is exactly what is happening when this code executes with a real program inside a real computer. Okay. And the same mechanism exists in practically all programming languages. And that includes VB. This is exactly what VB does. Behind the back, this is exactly what C and C++ programs do as well. Okay. Any other questions about this code? No questions? Okay, let's go ahead and use another example. And this time we're going back to factorial again. In other words, we're using the same subroutine called factorial to illustrate all these concepts. In other words, eventually, at some point, we want to eliminate the use of global variables completely. And this time we can do it already. So let's go to factorial. We specify by val n, by ref r, r for result. We say if n is less than or equal to 1, then r gets 1. Else, we invoke factorial again. We use n minus 1 to specify n. It doesn't give me the arrow because of the lack of space. And then we use r to specify r. It looks awfully confusing, but we'll see what it does. R gets r times n, and if, and define sub. And using our new standard, we have a main subroutine. Inside the main subroutine, we can have a local variable. In this case, I can call it x, and it doesn't matter what it is called. We'll make it 3, and then we say invoke factorial. And we'll specify, I take it back. Let's not even do that. Okay, let's get rid of line 14. And we will specify it like this. 3 goes to n, and then we use x to specify r. All right, we'll go ahead and utilize the result for once. Okay, here's my program. And let's do some indentations. All right, so this is factorial again. And this is not the last reincarnation of factorial either. When we specify return value, we'll use that to implement factorial again, and that one is going to be even more confusing. But we'll deal with that one when it's time to deal with that one. For now, we'll use pass by reference. Factorial.
Doesn't x need a value? Local variable.
X is a local variable.
It doesn't need a value. You don't.
No, it does not. We'll see. Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good observation. We are using x without a known initial value. Okay, but it does not need one to begin with.